I am Kevin Abbott, one of the owners of Barrel Monk Brewing. This is Ralph Fernell, he is our head brewer, and we are talking about Devils Decadence. This is an imperial milk stout at 12% alcohol. It is what is often referred to as a candy bar stout. This is the beer with coconut, with cinnamon, with vanilla. This is a beer, Ralph, that I sometimes get a little bit of shit because we do the Old Favorite Friday videos, and I'm constantly ragging on sweet, over-extracted imperial stouts. So what do? We go make a sweet, overly extracted imperial stout. No, I think first of all, we did this beer last year. It did very, very well for us. That's actually one of the beers that sold out in about a week. We do this in very small quantities because it's such a big beer. So not only was it very popular when we did it, but I also kind of tasked you early on. I said, listen, I want to have those flavors. I want to have apparent coconut, cinnamon, but I don't want any one flavor to dominate. I want those flavors to meld and kind of be the greater than the sum of its parts. And I want it, even though I need it to be sweet because that's the style, I want it to be balanced enough with some roasted malt so it's not just cloying. I think you hit it out the park last year. I think you did a better job this year. So why don't we talk a little bit about how things have changed or what your kind of goal was with this beer?
Yeah. So one of the things I always want to do is try and get the beer as true to style as I can. So I knew it was going to be a thick beer, but one thing I don't like about thick beers is sometimes you pay so much attention to getting them thick that you lack carbonation or something else. So I also wanted to make sure this was a well-carbonated beer. As far as just the beer itself, to kind of balance everything like you said, I was going for a coconut cream pie kind of flavor. And by even though it's still balanced, by adding a little more sweetness, by adding a little more milk sugar, and kind of blending that with the over 130 pounds of coconut and the insane amount of vanilla and all this, by adding that little bit of sweetness, it actually balances those ingredients, so it tastes more like a pastry as opposed to you tasting each one of those ingredients alone.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest change I try to make this year is have it all blend together so it tastes like what we're calling it, and also just add more body to kind of push that to the forefront.
Yeah, and I think you did a great job in the balance. I mean, that's the big thing. And when I am being a little bit overly critical about the style, I'm not looking for motor oil. I don't want it to be molasses. I don't want it to stick to the glass as much as it does. And you've got the nice body that it has some thickness and richness to it, but it's not overly cloying. I think the balance is well there. I think it's important what you mentioned about the carbonation, because even at 12%, sometimes it's hard to get those beers to take carbonation as well. And that little bit of extra carbonic acid helps to balance out some of the sweetness, as well as the roasted malt that you put into that, which I think is really, really great. And I love how analytical you are, like thinking about all these little things that are coming together, because I think it's very easy just to go, oh, we got coconut, we got cinnamon, we got vanilla, we don't really need to do much else, right? But the malt bill is important. The residual sugar that's left in the beer after fermentation is important. So that's really, really interesting. And I also think what you mentioned about using real ingredients, I feel bad because I'm the one that buys the ingredients for you, and when I know how much coconut's coming in and how much vanilla's coming in and how much cinnamon's coming in, I know you're going to have to. It's going to be a pain in the ass for you to actually work with that raw flaked coconut. We get all the losses because that coconut soaks up much beer. That one of the reasons why we do such small quantities of this per package is we lose so much. I mean, it's almost like we made an IPA. We had so much loss. Like if anyone knows, when you do dry hopping, you lose a lot of volume because those hops soak up so much liquid. But was it tough working with that coconut this year?
Yeah, and I was gonna say, just even fitting everything in the bright tank, because you can get the biggest bags you want, but there's only so much they can hold. So you're like putting in all this coconut, and you're just trying to find places to essentially hide it in the bright tank. So the beer will go through it, but there's only so much room. So it was definitely a little complicated since we have done this before. We had a little bit of experience with it. But yeah, I mean, even chopping up the vanilla, that's like a day's worth of work right there. So it definitely makes it interesting, but it makes a better beer. So
the joys of working with raw ingredients. I mean, listen, we try to do that as much as we possibly can, is working with real raw ingredients. We get better flavors off of those. A little more tricky. You have to kind of know when to put them in. You put them in post-fermentation, before fermentation. I believe they do the cinnamon and the transfer. And basically at the end of the boil, right? And the hop back. So, trying to perfect that and find the right spot to introduce those flavors so that they get the right kind of homogeneous flavor in the entire beer is really interesting. And thankfully you have a lot of experience with that. I have some experience with that from my previous life when I actually used to brew beer and do real work. So it's a lot of fun. Doing these kind of beers are a challenge when you're really trying to comb through them and do them well. And I have to say, Ralph, challenging you to make a pastry stout that I'm proud of. That's a big challenge, and I think you knocked it out of the park, man.
Thank you. And yeah, that's the biggest thing I was going to say, because especially in this neck of the woods, there's so many pastry stouts that how we've even been talking about balance and all this, you really need that, because to stand apart, you can't just say, I'm going to make a super thick beer with, you know, dessert ingredients. You actually have to sit there and analyze the malt bill and the carbonation in every step of the process, because otherwise you're just another pastry stout. But to do it at, you know, with our reputation and the way we feel about beer, you really have to pay attention to the nuances.
Pay attention to the details, man. That's the most important thing in brewing. Listen, December 2nd, this beer is going to be out and available for you to walk into the tap room and buy a 4-pack or have some on draft, maybe even get a crowler if you prefer that. But if you're watching this now before the 2nd, you can actually go to our website, go to our shop, and you can pre-order your Devils Decadence. Hey, listen, I don't know. This might sell out very quickly. It might not as well. You know, people like new stuff. This isn't as new, so maybe people won't jump on it as quickly. But last year, we sold out in about a week. So I do recommend, if you're seeing this early enough, come and try to get this beer if you're really interested in it. I think it's something we're really proud of, and I hope that you guys are going to enjoy. So we hope to see you on the 2nd. Cheers.
Cheers.